that end of the floor. You know, he's such a good athlete.
Right.
He was almost overcommitting athletically in certain cases rather than sitting back and letting the action come to him. He was lunging, getting off balance, and I think he's learned to be more under control and to cover the ground that he needs to cover without overcommitting. And so he's gotten a lot better kind of in the nuances.
That's just saying, just getting reps with the team and understanding.
Ton of reps, a lot of mentoring from Draymond, a lot of watching film with our coaching staff. So he's a great guy in terms of his willingness to accept coaching and absorb things.
Small sample size, obviously. What do you think the Rockets are doing 5 out?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a chance to watch them a ton. I'll watch more tonight. I watched a little bit of their Laker game right after the trade, and it just, it makes them more difficult to cover because, before, even though their center spot was filled by a guy, Capella, who could catch lobs and dunk it, so you still had to worry about him. You didn't have to worry about covering as much ground, and now you have to cover every bit of the court because of all their shooting. And then what it's done also is open up the floor for Russell Westbrook, and so it's they've always been very difficult to guard, and they present very unique challenges, and I think now probably even more so.
The league is just paying attention to what they're doing. We've seen kind of the evolution this way, but nobody's done quite right. They're trying to do.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody has gone full bore. I know Mike has talked about doing it for the past couple of years, and Daryl is all in on it, and I think it's interesting. I mean, it's not exactly something you can copy because there's only one James Harden, and a lot of teams are spacing the floor, and Minnesota is trying to play some of that style with a ton of three-point shooting, and a lot of high screens, and maybe one dive man and everybody else shooting. But I think this is the first time we've seen anybody go full on 5 out with shooting everywhere. So it'll be very interesting.
Are you going to keep Jordan at that position out of the break, do you think? I know Draymond's kind of playmaking.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it more that Draymond's our point, but that Jordan is making secondary plays, making plays as a secondary ball handler. So we'll pick our spots. It'll depend on matchups. We'll see what each game looks like, but I think Jordan has looked really good in a playmaking role. He's gotten more and more comfortable these last few weeks, and he's gained some confidence, and we'll continue to push the envelope.
I'm just thinking matchup-wise with the starting lineup. You don't know if you'll keep him in. Is that what you meant, matchup?
No. We'll keep him in the starting lineup, but we're not going to ask him to do too much. If he's got somebody hounding him full court, we're not going to ask him to do that. He's not that kind of point guard, but we do think he's a playmaker, a secondary ball handler, and so all this experience is really good for him. I think in training camp you could see he's a really good passer. He's got touch on his passes, sees the floor, got a lot of confidence. So we've seen it, and now I think the second part of the season he's started to figure out the speed of the game, what he can and can't do. I still think the biggest thing for somebody Jordan's age is first year in the league is figuring out when to shoot and when to pass. It sounds simple, but it's not. The gaps close so quickly in the NBA. So you've got to understand where your openings come from, and when they're open, you got to go, because one split second and that gap closes and your shot's not there anymore. And the flip side is true too. You can't attack attack the rim and expect to get all the way to the rim. There's going to be somebody with verticality at the rim, and it's not going to be as easy a shot as it was in college. So you got to understand when to pull up, when to move the ball on to another player.
Steve, just wondering, what is the goal for the second half? And you have little things you'd like to see the guys achieve as you get toward the end of the season? And
I think the goal is to incorporate Andrew into our team, into the group. It's to bring Steph back, and get him comfortable with his new teammates. Remember, he's only played 3 games with this group, and we're so different from the last 5 years. So Steph needs to figure this group out and vice versa. And we need to build momentum so that we can springboard into next season. We know that this year we're not going anywhere in terms of the playoffs, but we can use these final 27 games to build for next year.
what have you learned about yourself as a coach going through this process in the first half of the season?
It's a totally different style of coaching when you're coaching a team that's struggling to win and has a lot of young players. So there's more detail, more X's and O's, a lot more kind of finer point things, whereas in the past it was more big picture things. This is more detailed work, and I've had to grow in that regard as a coach.
We were talking yesterday about how Steph looks when he does what he is cleared to do. I know nobody forgot how he looks, but when you get to see it again, is it sort of recharging just to get that little reminder of, oh yeah, that guy's coming back, Klay's coming back?
These last few weeks have been really fun because he's been going full bore in his individual workouts, and to me it's one of the things that has been missing from our practices this year. The individual workouts of Steph and Klay and Kevin the last few years, post-practice, it's like a clinic. It's a clinic for younger players, how you have to conduct yourself as an NBA player. The work that you put in once practice is over is really the bar for how good you want to become and how serious you're taking this. And Steph, I've never seen anybody work harder than Steph in his post-practice workouts. And so now we're seeing that. All the younger guys are looking over there and they're seeing him. They're seeing what he goes through, what he does. And it's beautiful to watch. So I think our team is getting a bounce from that, a bounce of energy, and a reminder that better days are ahead.
You too?
Yeah, it's great watching him.
When you hear the other side of people saying that Steph is just fit, let's let him come back next year. What's your thought when you hear this? Well, the debate is always great.
Yeah, I mean, continuity matters in this game. I mean, one of the real benefits we've had over the last 5 years is that we've had the same core, and so from one year to the next, that group just grew and grew and grew to the point where we barely needed to practice. They knew each other so well that we just needed to maintain our team physically and emotionally, and they were together all the time. Now we've got this brand new team, and these young guys have never played with Steph. We need the final quarter of the season to build that continuity and that chemistry in order to go into next year's training camp with some familiarity.
Did you see the other side of it?
No. He's perfectly healthy. He's in the prime of his career. If the point is because he might get hurt, then what's the point of ever playing anybody? I mean, people can get hurt any day, and I guess the argument would be, well, we're not going to the playoffs. So are we not trying to entertain our fans? Are we not? We're selling tickets to all these people who love basketball, and Steph Curry is one of the most amazing, graceful, exciting basketball players on earth. And if he were healthy and we didn't present him to our fans and say, here you go, here's your gift for staying with us for this whole season, what would that say about us? That we don't care about our fans? So to me, it's never been a question. as soon as he's ready, he's coming back. Our fans deserve it. We need it as a team to as I said, to springboard into next year, and it's the right thing to do.
Well, even any part of you standing to watch the last couple of months, lottery-wise, I mean, I know you talked about like getting that out of your brain early in the season, but as it really kind of heads towards you.
It's totally different from the playoff watch, you know. I mean, the playoff watch, every single night you're watching League Pass, you're thinking about how you'd match up against this team or the other. And the lottery stuff is totally different. I mean, even if you end up with the very worst record in the league, you got, what, a 15, 17%, 14% chance. So it's not anything I think too much about. We do know that given where we are, we're going to end up with a really high pick, and we'll be in a good spot to add a good young talented player. We haven't been able to do that in the draft for a long time, so you know that's one bright spot in an otherwise difficult year. But it's not anything that we're sort of on the edge of our seats for.
Steve, just to follow up on the Steph stuff, how much of it is he just wants to play and he's pushing you guys to say, I want to be back on the floor?
Again, it's never even been a conversation. Like, Steph doesn't have to talk us into anything. We know he wants to play because he loves basketball, and we want him to play because we need him for the continuity and to build that momentum for next year. And then our fans are dying to see him play. He's playing. He's almost healthy. He's almost ready. So he's playing. No discussion. He doesn't need to convince me of anything. And we're going to be. This is a totally different deal than Klay, right? Steph had surgery on his wrist. It's basically healed. He's right on the cusp. Klay had an ACL. It's a totally different conversation, and I think there's a big distinction there.
Is there any restrictions with Loon coming out of the break? I mean, I know his minutes were kind of low heading.
Yeah, he's had 2 really good practices in a row, and I just talked to Rick, and we feel like Loon's in a good place, and so no restrictions. But that can change, any day. We'll just keep an eye on him, and the hope is that we can throw him out there consistently now for the rest of the season. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
You need to run.